Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Yasodhanandana Vrajana Ranjana. Yasodhanandana Vrajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Yasodhanandana Vrajana Ranjana. Yasodhanandana Vrajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
AC Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parvikacharya Asuric Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem Sehe Koshi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopana Shamakun Radhakun Gir Govardhan ki jai. Shri Mayapur Dham ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Ganga Mai ki jai. Yamuna Mai ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai, Tulsi Devi ki jai, Anoti Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaura Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayam Urdayet Nasta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Uttam Ashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning we'll be reading from Canto 7, Chapter 3, Text 2. Sa Tepe Mandara Dronyam Tapaha Parama Darunam Urdva Bahur Nabodrishtihi Padangushtash Ritavanihi Satepe Mandara Dronyam. Okay. Satepe Mandara Dronyam. Tapa Parama Darunam. Urdva Bahur Nabodrishti. Padangushta Shrita Vinahi. Satepe Mandara Dronyam Tapa Parama Darunam Urdva Bahur Nabodrishti Padangushta Shrita Vanihi Satepe Mandara Dronyam Tapa Parama Darunam Urdva Bahur Nabodrishti Padangushta Shrita Vani. Satepe Mandara Dronyam Anyone else? Synonyms. Saha, he, Hiraṇyakaśipu. Tepe, performed. Mandaradronyam, in a valley of Mandara hill. Tapaha, austerity. Parama, most. Darunam, difficult. Urdhva, raising. Bahuhu, arms. Nabaha, toward the sky. Drishtihi, his vision. Pada angushta, with the big toes of his feet. Ashrita, resting on. Avanihi, the ground. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. In the valley of Mandara hill, Hiraṇyakaśipu began performing his austerities by standing with his toes on the ground, keeping his arms upward and looking toward the sky. This position was extremely difficult, but he accepted it as a means to attain perfection. So I'll read a few verses until we get a purport. From the hair on Hiraṇyakashipu's head, there emanated an effulgent light as brilliant and intolerable as the rays of the sun at the time of dissolution. Seeing the performance of such austere penances, the demigods who had been wandering throughout the planets now returned to their respective homes. Because of Hiraṇyakashipu's severe austerities, fire came from his head, and this fire and its smoke spread throughout the sky, encompassing the upper and lower planets, which all became extremely hot. Because of the power of his severe austerities, all the rivers and oceans were agitated. The surface of the globe, with its mountains and islands, began trembling, and the stars and planets fell. All directions were ablaze. Scorched and extremely disturbed because of Hiraṇyakashipu's severe penances, all the demigods left the planets where they reside and went to the planet of Lord Brahma, where they informed the Creator as follows. O Lord of the demigods, O Master of the universe, because of the fire emanating from Hiraṇyakashipu's head, as a result of his severe austerities, we have become so disturbed that we could not stay in our planets but have come to you. O great person, chief of the universe, if you think it proper, kindly stop these disturbances meant to destroy everything before all your obedient subjects are annihilated. Hiraṇyakashipu has undertaken a most severe type of austerity. Although his plan is not unknown to you, kindly listen as we submit his intentions. Quote, the Supreme Person within this universe, Lord Brahma, has gotten his exalted post by dint of severe austerities, mystic power, and trance. Consequently, after creating the universe, he has become the most worshipful demigod within it. Since I am eternal and time is eternal, I shall endeavor for such austerity, mystic power, and trance for many, many births, and thus I shall occupy the same post occupied by Lord Brahma. Purport. Hiraṇyakashipu's determination was to occupy the post of Lord Brahma, but this was impossible because Brahma has a long duration of life, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Sahasra Yuga Paryantam Aharyad Brahmano Viduhu. 1,000 yugas equals 1 day of Brahma. The duration of Brahma's life is extremely great, and consequently, it was impossible for Hiraṇyakashipu to occupy that post. Nonetheless, his decision was that since the self, Atma, and time are both eternal, if he could not occupy that post in one lifetime, he would continue to execute austerities life after life, so that sometime he would be able to do so. Last verse. By dint of my severe austerities, I shall reverse the results of pious and impious activities. I shall overturn all the established practices within this world. Even Dhruvaloka will be vanquished at the end of the millennium. Therefore, what is the use of it? I shall prefer to remain in the position of Brahma. Purport. Hiraṇyakāśipu's demoniac determination was explained to Lord Brahma by the demigods, who informed him that Hiraṇyakāśipu wanted to overturn all the established principles. After executing severe austerities, people within this material world are promoted to the heavenly planets. But Hiraṇyakāśipu wanted them to be unhappy, suffering because of the diplomatic feelings of the demigods, even in the heavenly planets. He wanted those who were harassed in this world by material transactions to be unhappy for the same reason, even in the heavenly planets. Indeed, he wanted to introduce such harassment everywhere. One might ask how this would be possible, since the universal order has been established since time immemorial. But Hiraṇyakāśipu was proud to declare that he would be able to do everything by the power of his tapasya. He even wanted to make the Vaishnava's position insecure. These are some of the symptoms of Asuric determination. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So before I start, I wanted to share my small realization. In this age, it's recommended Hare Nama Hare Eva Kevalam Klau Nast Eva Gatiranyata. That in this age of Kali, there is no other way than chanting the holy name for deliverance. And Krishna also describes this in Bhagavad Gita. He says, Yagyanam japa yagyosmi, that of sacrifices I am chanting of the holy name. So I want to discuss this a little bit. So chanting the holy name is described as nectar, right? But sometimes, due to disease, we don't taste that nectar. Just like jaundice, something very sweet tastes very bitter. But the cure, Srila Prabhupada said you drink a hot glass of sweet water, and it cures it. So this morning, as I was finishing my japa, I was relishing this chanting, And you can taste it when your mind isn't worried about today's agenda or yesterday's activities. When your mind is fully absorbed in chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And you can taste this nectar. And I was also thinking of, if you're not worried about, where you're going to park, how much it is to pay the rent this month, you can actually relish chanting the holy name. And on book distribution, I personally experienced this. When it's a little slow, I just grab my bead bag and I start chanting, and time just passes by. But you can still get a little glimpse of the glories of chanting. And this reminded me of in New York, in 26 2nd Avenue, what was that storefront's name? Matchless Gifts. So there was this Mataji at the park, and she was interviewing people, and she said, you look very unique. I would like to interview you. So she asked a lot of interesting questions, and she said, if your 10-year-old self was to be here, what would you tell yourself that he wouldn't believe? And I said, well, I wouldn't think I would be a monk. That's for sure, And then she asked another question. She said, if you were to give a title in this part of your life, what would it be? And I thought about it, and I said, I would name it Giving Giftless Gifts, right? So this is what we're doing in book distribution. We're giving this matchless gift to others. And then she said, why is it called matchless? And I described that these books, all the wealth in the 3 worlds cannot purchase even 1 page in this book. And she started laughing, and she said, I'm going to save this. So while she was asking me these questions, I was really thinking about this chanting. And one pastime that really glorifies this is the Ajamil pastime. So I'd like to read a few verses from there, if it's okay. So Yamaraj, he's telling his Yamadutas, the Vishnu Dutas protect the devotees of the Lord from the hands of enemies, from envious persons, and even from my jurisdiction. And who is Yamaraj? He's a Mahajan, and he's a superintendent of death. And he's telling his Yamadutas, I don't even have jurisdiction to punish these devotees. And then he says, my dear servants, the transcendental religious principle which is known as Bhagavad Dharma, or surrender unto the Supreme Lord and love for Him, is uncontaminated by the material modes of nature. It is very confidential and difficult for ordinary human beings to understand. But if by chance one fortunately understands it, he is immediately liberated, and thus he returns home, back to Godhead. Devotional service, beginning with the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, is the ultimate religious principle for the living entity in human society. And then he tells his servants, my dear servants, who are as good as my sons, just see how glorious is the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. The greatly sinful Ajamil chanted only to call his son, not knowing that he was chanting the Lord's holy name. Nevertheless, by chanting the holy name of the Lord, he remembered Narayan, and thus he was immediately saved from the ropes of death. This is why I love the Ajamil pastimes. And it makes me think about my past, what we used to do, and sometimes what are we still doing. And then he says, therefore it should be understood that one is easily relieved from all sinful reactions by chanting the holy name of the Lord and chanting of His qualities and activities. This is the only process recommended for relief from sinful activities. Even if one chants the holy name of the Lord with improper pronunciation, he will achieve relief from material bondage if he chants without offenses. Ajamil, for example, was extremely sinful, but while dying he merely chanted the holy name, and although calling his son, he achieved complete liberation because he remembered the name of Narayan. And then I like this part. My dear servants, please do not approach such devotees, for they have fully surrendered to the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They are equal to everyone, and their narrations are sung by the demigods and the inhabitants of Siddhaloka. Please do not even go near them. They are always protected by the club of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore Lord Brahma and I, and even time factor, are not competent to chastise them. So we should understand the importance of what Srila Prabhupada has given us. And then the question is, who should they bring to Yamaraj? So he says, my dear servants, please bring to me only those sinful persons who do not use their tongues to chant the holy name and qualities of Krishna, whose hearts do not remember the lotus feet of Krishna even once, and whose heads do not bow down even once before Lord Krishna. Send me those who do not perform their duties toward Vishnu, which are the only duties in human life. Please bring me all fools and rascals. And how many of the population described like this? A lot of these people, they don't even come to the temple. They don't bow down. They don't even get a chance to chant the holy name. So all these people are going to be meeting Yamaraj at the time of death. But the devotees, we have nothing to fear. And then Krishna also says, Mrityu sarva haraschaham, that Krishna is death, so we have nothing to fear. Okay. So here we can see the mentality of demoniac persons, what they want to achieve by their severe austerities. They want to cheat, they want to defy the laws of God, and they want everyone to be unhappy. I met this young man in La Jolla Cove. His name is Jose. And he was telling me, I want to perfect yoga. And I said, why? He said, I want to be able to control people's minds. So, yeah. So I said, don't you have a better purpose, to practice yoga? So similarly, great persons, even like Ravana, what did he want? He wanted to create a staircase leading to heaven. And not depending on your karma or your activities, you can go to the heavenly planet without doing sacrifice. And also, another good example is Ravana. When he was given the boon, so what had happened was he was trying to pass Mount Kailash, the abode of Lord Shiva, and he couldn't pass through this mountain. So he went down and he started with it's described in the Ramayana, he had 20 powerful arms and he dug inside the earth and he was trying to lift it. And he was very powerful. So he kind of shook the mountain. And Parvati slipped from her position and she grasped onto Lord Shiva. And then she cursed Ravana. She said, this rascal, just like you scared me, a woman, your death is going to be caused by a woman. And then Lord Shiva said, don't worry. So Lord Shiva stood up and with his big toe, he pressed upon the earth. And then that crushed all of Ravana's arms. And then his friends, Ravana's friends, told him, you should chant glories of Lord Shiva. So although he was chanting for 100 years, his arms were still crushed. And then Lord Shiva finally appeared and said, I'm pleased by your prayers. And then Ravana, what did he ask? He said, if you're actually pleased, give me your weapon. He wanted Lord Shiva's weapon, after doing these severe prayers and offerings to Lord Shiva. And so even Lord Brahma, before Brahma could take part in creation, he had to perform austerities. And then he was given the intelligence to create. And Srila Prabhupada, he explains that tapasya applies to diet, to personal behavior, to dealings with others, and so on. So in every aspect of life, there is tapasya, whether it's mental, bodily, or verbal tapasya. And, the urge to speak is very strong. And Srila Prabhupada says, and when we get a chance, we speak nonsense things. So tapasya of the tongue means only eating Krishna prasad, or chanting the glories, the devotees of Krishna. And Prabhupada says we shouldn't speak loosely or whimsically. You cannot speak nonsense. If you talk, you must speak about Krishna. That is tapasya. And also, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. So in this canto, we'll see how, like Virachandra Prabhu was saying, Hiraṇyakaśipu performed so much austerities for many years, and then he was only able to enjoy this for 5 years, right? So it's limited, his fruits, and they're temporary. And so, excuse me. And then another great personality, Lord Rishabhadev, he's also telling us to perform austerities. But he says, Tapu Divyam Putraka. He says, in this human form of life, you should not waste it chasing sense gratification, but you should perform divine austerities. Why? And then he says, Yena Sattvam Shuddhayat, to purify our existence. I was speaking to some Christians, and I said, if the kingdom of God is pure, shouldn't you also purify yourself? And they said, no, we're saved by faith. But we don't believe in that. We believe in faith, mercy, and also our own endeavor. And so Rishabhadev is instructing his sons very important and careful instructions. He says that this human form of life, we should voluntarily accept austerities. And Srila Prabhupada used the example of stopping at a stoplight. you know. When it's red, you have to wait. You can't go. And if you can't wait, it causes accidents. I remember there's been a handful of times where, it turns yellow, and instead of waiting, people run this yellow light. And then I've seen accidents, People, they don't want to stop, and then at the same time, people are speeding. So it's going to cause a collision. And then Prabhupada says, but if an animal, if he doesn't wait for the red light, nobody cares for the animal. So the human form of life and animals, there's different rules. And people are always performing tapasya. I have a cousin, and he works at the, what is it called? Camp Pendleton. And sometimes he goes through traffic, and it takes him 2 hours to get there. And he's telling me that his back is starting to hurt, right? And also, Dravida Prabhu also mentioned that these surfers, they wake up early, right? 2, 3 o'clock. What do? They go to the ocean and they surf. But for us, we're waking up early to greet Krishna, 4:30 in the morning. And so Rishabhadev is advising his sons that you shouldn't use this human form of life just like hogs and dogs. And then he says stool eating. Maharaj and myself, we were in Rajasthan, and there was this garbage heap, and then there was a family of hogs, and I've never seen hogs that big. Here we call them pigs, but in India they're really hogs, So they were going in the sewage, they were finding just trash. And then, there was a sewer system there, and then they were drinking from it, they were eating it. And Srila Prabhupada, he says that in the wartime, the Germans, they would extract fat from stool. And then Prabhupada says that the essence of the food stuff that we take, that's stool. And hogs, they like the stool, So we shouldn't work hard like the dogs and hogs, just to, Huh? And the Germans, yeah. So, okay, it's almost time, so I'll end with the little Sankirtan. I spoke with some Muslim Matajis, one was fully covered, like the whole thing. So she was really interested in the Bhagavad Gita. But, Muslims, they have a higher, if one were to converse, very dangerous. Some of them can even be killed. So I was very cautious what I was going to tell her. So anyway, they were so fascinated by karma and reincarnation. 2 of them took books, and the third one, the one that was fully dressed, she came back after a few hours, after they were done checking Balboa Park. And then I asked her, I said, can I ask you a question? And she said, yeah. And I said, what is this, virgins thing, If you go to paradise, you get an X amount of virgins, Because she was really open-minded. And what she told me is that for a man, the most attractive thing for them is a woman. So she said that God uses this as a reward, So she said, in order for them to do good in this world, they get this award. That after living a good life, you go to heaven, and then you can enjoy virgins like that. And I said, that's pretty intense. And then she said, I don't think so, And then she said, and I told her that we should try to conquer lust, anger, and greed. And then she respected that. And I also told her that besides, this is from Chanakya Pandit, he said, besides one's own wife, we should see every woman as a mother. And she said, I really like that. So I said, we're trying to control our lust. We're not trying to do good in the world. We're not trying to worship God just so we can get a few virgins, Long story short, she took a Bhagavad Gita, and she also gave $5, Yeah. So everyone's curious. And, Asian people and Indians, I have a very hard time with them, For some reason, they don't want to come to my table. They don't want to speak to me, nothing. So this one day, I had 2 interactions. there was this Asian woman, and she was with her husband, and she was telling me how they had a 10 and a 15-year-old sons. And at this age, they were kind of rebellious. Even despite giving them good advice, they wouldn't listen. So I told them that there are 4 ways of learning. One is by hearing, one is by seeing, one is by bitter experience, and then the last one, even if he sees and experiences this, he still doesn't learn. So I told her sometimes you have to just let them experience this hardship on their own. And I was also explaining to her that, but we shouldn't be, what's that word? We shouldn't be neglectful of them, We should still treat them nicely and, as parents would. And she appreciated the conversation, and the husband, she said, we want to get these books. And I said, you can learn wonderful lessons from these books. So the husband gave $20. And then the Mataji, she was reaching for her phone and she was scanning the Venmo. And then the husband said, no, I already gave a donation. And she said, I also want to give. She gave $50 like that. And then the sons, they came, And so the mom wanted me to speak to them. So I was just telling them how you should respect your father and your mother, You have no idea how much they actually love you. So long story short, the Mataji and the man, they shook my hand. They said, thank you for speaking to us. And then another time, there was a Chinese man. He said, I've been practicing transcendental meditation for 20 years. And so he asked me, what do you think about this person? I'm not going to say. And so I told him, should I flatter you or tell you the truth? He said, please tell me the truth. And I said, there's a lot of cheaters out there. So I was explaining how we have no business of cheating people. We're not charging mantras or anything like that. And so he appreciated the conversation, and then he also gave $50. He took a Bhagavad Gita, a set, and some other books. And then there's this other Mataji. I said, excuse me, do you speak another language besides English? And she said, Chinese. I said, I have this book for you. And I said, what does it translate as? And then she said, Beyond Birth and Death. I said, doesn't it sound interesting? And she said, no, I don't like this book. I said, why not? She said, I don't like death. So she was trying to avoid, even reading about death. People are afraid of this. So she didn't take a book. But it was interesting how she said, I don't like this book just because it says death. And so I met this other young man. He was a personal trainer. And I said, we take care of our physical health, but we neglect our mental and spiritual health. And he said, that's right. He came to my table. And I said, people work so hard to get a powerful body, but they're very weak-minded. And that really spoke to him. And then before even finishing my little speech, he said, how much for the books? And he gave a donation and he took the books. And then sometimes you'll also experience this. Random people just come to your table and just drop a donation, There was a man, I was speaking to people and he held a note like this. And I picked it up. I've never spoke to him or met him before. So after I was speaking to these people, he came back and I said, what's this for? He said, I really appreciate the service that you do for others. And he said, I read the Bhagavad Gita. And I said, I know Srila Prabhupada's intentions like that. So they appreciate the devotees' work. There was this Mataji, she was coming from New York. And then she said, I took some time off of work to come here and hoping that I would find something meaningful and spiritual. So I said, you came to the right table, So I smiled and I said, what causes, why do you want to leave work? And she said, it's just so stressful, dealing with my coworkers, my boss. And she said, I wanted to see if there's something else out there. So I introduced the Bhagavad Gita and the books. And then at the end, she said, thank you so much for being here. You came at the right time in my life. Like that. So end soon. There was, in Balboa Park, the Grinch, it's starting to play now, how the Grinch stole Christmas. So there was this family in a rush, and I was able to stop the husband. I said, "Excuse me, young man." He said, "I'm not young." And I said, "Your soul is young, it's eternal." So he said, so his family left and he came back. And I was explaining to him how important these books are. It helps to pacify the mind and helps you to find purpose and meaning in life. And then he said, the whole world needs this. He gave $20 and he took the books and then he left. So the December marathon is approaching very rapidly, And this is the time I started saying this on book distribution. I said, this is the season for giving. And people like that. So the December marathon, we can, people that are busy working, what you can do is you can sponsor books, and then we'll do the distribution for you. If you want to help gift wrap the books, that's also a nice service. Or if you want to go out with the devotees, the book distributors on Sankirtan, you can also do that. And any little help, it goes a long way. And, the December marathon, it makes me appreciate Srila Prabhupada's hard work, When you read the Prabhupada Leela Amrita, all this crazy endeavor he had to go through just to type and translate these books for us, So we should, in honor of his hard work, we should try to distribute this also to others. A lot of people that come to my table, they really appreciate the books. And I tell them this is the best investment you can make with your time. I said, just spend 5 minutes a day just reading through these books. You learn so much. So, December marathon is coming up. We hope that devotees can go out also. And this morning I was on the altar, and Maharaj said we should let Vijay know that it's still going on. Okay, that's all I have. Are there any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna?
Not yet.
Just a second, Vijay Krishna.
Yes, I can wait, no problem.
Yes, Maharaj.
Tapasya. Just because you mentioned it, because the Muslims don't believe in reincarnation. Mm-hmm. I bet you if you talk to Sufi mystics, there's actually, not meditation, reincarnation, but I bet there's Sufi mystics, that's their mystical wing that believe in reincarnation, but that's another thing. If they don't, as they generally say, they don't believe in reincarnation, if you're a man, then you get 72 virgins or 17 or whatever it is. What is the impetus for a woman?
Okay.
Do they get men?
She said it's not as terrible as that. She didn't tell me in full detail, but she just said it makes me happy that I'm a woman like that. So that's all she said.
So she didn't say what they get.
Yeah, she didn't disclose it for some reason.
Can only be one thing. Because the Catholic nuns, some Catholic nuns, take a vow that they become a bride of Jesus. And there's a name for it, I forget, but they're in that mood. So we don't know. All right, thanks. But she said there is something.
But she said it's not as intense as a man's desire for the virgin, something like that. And I started telling people, hey, it's nice to see you again. I haven't seen you in a long time. Total strangers. And they would say, how do you know us? And I said, maybe from a previous life. And then they would say, I always thought about reincarnation, And I said, come here, I have some books for you. So I would have coming back, So when a lot of people, they're really becoming interested in, karma, reincarnation, things like that. Okay. Vijay Krishna Prabhu?
May I?
Yes, please.
Yes, Govardhan Prabhu, thank you very much. You're most kind. Dandavat pranams. But before I present my question, I just would like to do it very quickly to offer my thanks to Badri Narayan Maharaj for allowing me to be a part of the Zoom Sangha, because we just had Thanksgiving Day. Thank you very much, Badri Narayan Maharaj. You're so merciful.
Thank you.
So my question, Govardhan Prabhu, is...
Hold on, Vijay Krishna.
The real thanks goes to you for your enthusiasm.
No, I cannot hear you, Maharaj. Can you use the mic?
The real credit is thank you for your enthusiasm for Bhagavatam. Now ask your question.
You're most welcome, Maharaj. Thank you very much. Govardhan Prabhu, my question is, why is it that I often hear from the devotees that to take the post of Lord Brahma is not the best choice in life?
Okay. Although Lord Brahma lives a very long time, it's been stated in so many lectures that he himself is not immortal, you know. And Hiraṇyakaśipu is thinking that Lord Brahma is the supreme creator. And then, like Moggallila Prabhu said yesterday, he said, I can't give you what I don't have, you know. You have to approach Vishnu. And then Hiraṇyakaśipu is very inimical towards Lord Vishnu. So, and also Lord Brahma, after his long duration of life, he still has to somewhat die, you know. But it's described that he's going to go to back to Vaikuntha, this Lord Brahma. Yes, Maharaj.
Yeah, and you've never experienced managing, evidently. What to speak of when he leaves his body and what his next life is. I can't imagine an eternal life as a temple president or a GBC. Forget it. I've done it for 45 years, and I feel like I've been hit by a truck. So it's not that he's anxiety-less.
Mm-hmm.
He's got bigger. Can you imagine running the entire universe? That's why he's got 4 heads.
Mm-hmm.
You get 4 headaches.
Migraines.
Migraines. Is that okay?
Of course, that is
Okay.
beyond okay. Thank you very much, Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So sorry, I forgot one more story. I started asking people, do you know what a rat race is? And people say, we're in it, you know. So they say that. So I said, get these books. They help you to get out of this trap. And 2-3 people came to my table after hearing that, you know, because they know they're just going around and around and around. So I told them these books, they liberate you from this cycle, you know, this wicked cycle of samsara, repeated birth and death. Okay, thank you for your time and attention. Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.